The world watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension as tanks rumbled through Tiananmen Square, their steel hulls glinting in the morning light. The sheer scale of the display was impossible to ignore, a demonstration of power meant for both domestic pride and international warning. Soldiers marched in perfect synchronicity, their boots striking the pavement in a thunderous rhythm, each step a testament to discipline and unity. The parade ground became a stage for a meticulously choreographed show of force. Missiles gleamed under Beijing's sky, their warheads pointed skyward, a silent but unmistakable threat. The world's cameras lingered on these weapons, capturing the message. China's military ambitions were no longer hidden. On the grandstand, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un stood shoulder to shoulder, a tableau of defiance and unity. Their presence together sent a signal that resonated far beyond the parade route. This was no ordinary parade. It was the unveiling of a new axis, a direct challenge to Western dominance. The crowds cheered, but the world's leaders watched with growing unease, sensing a shift in the global order. Their message was clear: the old rules no longer applied, and the future, they declared, belonged to them. The alliance was not just symbolic, it was a declaration of intent. The spectacle was a prelude to violence, a warning that the world was entering a new and dangerous era. The tension in the air was palpable, as if everyone sensed what was coming next. Hours later, as night fell, Russia unleashed its largest aerial assault on Ukraine. Over 800 drones filled the sky, accompanied by the roar of engines and the whine of missiles. 13 missiles rained down on cities. Kiev's government district burned, homes were shattered, and civilians lost their lives in the chaos. The world watched in horror as the violence unfolded. The message from Moscow, amplified by Beijing's show of support, was unmistakable. We are not alone, and we will not be stopped. The partnership was now forged in fire and conflict. The world had witnessed the promise, and now, its brutal fulfillment. A new axis had taken the stage, and the consequences would echo for years to come. The Russia-China alliance is rooted in decades of shifting rivalry and pragmatic partnership. Their story is one of adaptation, calculation, and mutual benefit, shaped by the tides of global politics and the ambitions of two powerful nations. Once communist brethren, then bitter rivals, their relationship transformed dramatically after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The ideological unity of the early years gave way to suspicion and border clashes, but necessity eventually brought them back together. Russia, weakened by economic turmoil and international isolation, offered its vast resources and military might as bargaining chips in a new era of cooperation. Meanwhile, China, rising rapidly on the world stage, brought investment, technology, and growing global influence to the table, eager to secure energy and strategic partnerships. United by suspicion of the West and a shared desire to reshape the global order, they formalized their no-limits friendship just before Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, signaling a new phase of alignment. China walked a diplomatic tightrope, never condemning the war, echoing Russian narratives, and skillfully sidestepping Western sanctions, all while maintaining its own interests and global image. Their bond deepened in 2025 with over 20 new bilateral agreements, covering everything from infrastructure and technology to biosecurity and energy, reflecting a growing interdependence. This was more than symbolism. It was the foundation of an integrated economic and strategic bloc, increasingly independent of Western systems and capable of shaping global markets. For Putin, this partnership became a lifeline for economic survival and political relevance. For Xi, it offered strategic leverage and access to critical resources. Russia became increasingly dependent on China's markets and technology, while China secured a loyal, resource-rich partner to fuel its global ambitions and support its vision of a multipolar world. Their partnership is now a central pillar in the challenge to Western power, reshaping alliances and forcing a rethink of global strategy in Washington and Brussels. The world order is shifting, and fast. As Russia and China draw closer, the balance of power is being redrawn with consequences that will echo for decades to come. The Beijing summit was a geopolitical turning point. North Korea, once a pariah, was welcomed by Moscow and Beijing, signaling a new anti-Western axis. The summit projected strength and solidarity, contrasting with perceived Western divisions. For Russia, North Korea became a vital supplier of munitions. For China, a buffer and bargaining chip. The trilateral relationship formalized military and economic cooperation, challenging Western containment. Their vision, a world where sovereignty is absolute, spheres of influence respected and powerful states act with impunity. This is the antithesis of the liberal order, international law and human rights replaced by authoritarian power. The parade was not just military theater, it was a declaration to remake the world in their image. The West now faces a united, defiant bloc. The Ukraine war is as much economic as it is military. While battles rage on the ground, a parallel struggle unfolds in boardrooms, trading floors and government offices across the globe. The fate of nations is being shaped not just by tanks and missiles, but by the flow of money, energy and influence. Western sanctions aim to cripple Russia's economy, targeting its banks, industries and energy exports. But China's support has blunted much of their intended impact, providing Moscow with a crucial economic buffer. China has become Russia's economic lifeline, buying discounted oil and gas, filling market gaps left by Western companies, and providing hard currency to keep Russian trade afloat. This partnership has allowed Russia to weather the storm far better than many expected. Projects like the Power of Siberia pipeline are more than just infrastructure. They're financial arteries that keep Kremlin coffers full, ensuring Russia can continue funding its war effort. But this isn't charity, it's leverage. China dictates terms, secures cheap resources, and tests the limits of Western sanctions. Every deal strengthens Beijing's hand and deepens Moscow's dependence. By helping Russia, China is also running a real-world experiment, learning how to withstand future sanctions, especially if conflict erupts over Taiwan. Each transaction is a lesson in economic resilience and strategic adaptation. The emerging Sino-Russian bloc now challenges Western dominance in global trade and finance, forging new alliances and alternative systems that threaten to reshape the world order. The West debates secondary sanctions on China, weighing the risks of escalating into a global trade war that could disrupt supply chains and economies worldwide. To act could trigger a worldwide economic crisis. To do nothing enables Putin's aggression and undermines the credibility of Western power. The West is trapped in a high-stakes game, and Beijing now holds many of the keys to the global economy's future. In this new era, the economic battlefield is proving to be just as decisive, and perhaps even more consequential, than the one in Ukraine itself. The Russia-China-North Korea partnership is evolving into a formidable military alignment. Joint exercises, technology transfers, and weapons supplies are now routine. China avoids direct lethal aid but provides critical tech and equipment. North Korea, in exchange for food and fuel, supplies Russia with artillery and rockets. The Beijing summit legitimized this cooperation, turning clandestine deals into open policy. Russia's war in Ukraine is a live laboratory. Chinese observers study Western tactics, drone warfare, and logistics. These lessons fuel China's military modernization, especially regarding Taiwan. NATO fears a true military alliance is emerging, forcing the West to split its focus between Europe and the Indo-Pacific. Joint naval drills and intelligence sharing are deepening. The axis is no longer theoretical, it's a growing reality. The Beijing spectacle and Kiev's destruction jolted Western capitals. Hopes of China as a neutral mediator vanished. A consolidated authoritarian axis had arrived. NATO faces pressure to reinforce its eastern flank as Russia's military aggression intensifies. The debate over secondary sanctions on China divides the West. Some fear economic collapse, others warn of unchecked aggression. Beijing and Moscow exploit these divisions, knowing Western unity is fragile. The crisis exposes deep dependencies on authoritarian states for resources and technology. Calls grow for de-risking, onshoring, diversifying, and investing in domestic industries. But this transformation will take years. For now, the West scrambles to respond to a rapidly evolving threat. Cohesion is elusive, and time is short. The fire in Kiev's government district was more than destruction. It was a symbol. Putin's strike, timed after the Beijing summit, signaled new confidence and contempt for Ukrainian sovereignty. The scale, over 800 drones and 13 missiles, marked a terrifying escalation. This was less about military gain, more about punishing and demoralizing Ukraine. Russia's strategy exhausts Ukraine through relentless, indiscriminate violence. Ukraine, skilled at targeted strikes, remains vulnerable to mass bombardment. Each attack pressures Western partners to supply more advanced air defenses. The Pechersky fire is a visceral plea for help, a reminder of the cost of inaction. The West must decide arm Ukraine further or watch as Russia, emboldened by allies, burns its cities. The stakes have never been higher. Diplomacy is stalled. The war grinds on. Putin, buoyed by Beijing's support, rejects ceasefire proposals, betting on Western fatigue. Humanitarian gestures, prisoner exchanges offer brief relief but no real progress. Humanitarian gestures, child returns offer brief relief but no real progress. For both Putin and Zelensky, the war is now about political survival. Putin's legacy and grip on power depend on victory or at least avoiding humiliation. Zelensky's authority rests on resisting Russian aggression and refusing to cede territory. Neither leader can afford compromise, both are trapped by their own narratives. The conflict's human cost grows, but the path to peace remains blocked. The war's continuation is now a matter of personal and political necessity. September 2025 marked a turning point, the rise of a new, authoritarian power bloc. The post-Cold War era is over. Great power competition has returned. The Sino-Russian axis, with its allies, is building parallel systems in finance, trade, and technology. Western dominance is no longer assured. A fragmented, volatile world is emerging. Human rights and international law are giving way to transactional geopolitics and spheres of influence. The global south will play both sides, exploiting the new competition. The West must adapt, overcome divisions, invest, and offer a compelling alternative. The fire in Kiev and the parade in Beijing are symbols of this new era. The clock is ticking for the West to define its role and purpose. The world map is being redrawn, fast and for good.